Please here for please welcome Mr. William Shatner.
That's it. Excuse me. Usually you do that before the person comes on the stage. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. Don't stand up. I'm so glad to be here in the center of the space program, I guess. What? Whatever you said, thank you. As long as it isn't insulting. So when I face a new audience, you think, how do you start a conversation? So I was here the 25th anniversary of something. I'm not sure what part of the space program. What?
Star Trek.
Oh, somebody yelled out, it was the 25th anniversary of Star Trek. Oh. It's lost in the mists of time. So we were here, I was here some years ago, but I don't really recollect what it was about. But passing by, is it the S-71 there? Is that the S-71, which I followed from the Skunk Works in Burbank, which is not far from where I live, and the S-71 was developed there. And actually, the whole mystery, the whole enthralling idea of space. I was a city boy. I was born in Montreal, Canada, and it was a fairly big city then, bigger city now. But the point was that growing up on the streets of Montreal, I didn't see much of the sky, the light pollution and all that. And then my parents sent me to a 2-week camp that parents often do, to go outside and look at a tree, which is what I did. So my recollection, like I don't remember the 25th anniversary, but I remember stepping out of the place where we were eating, the mess hall, where the kids all ate, and it was like sundown, and then the sun had set, and I stepped out at night, and for the first time, I saw that incredible view of the sky, without light pollution, without any lights interfering with the sky. I saw the stars for the first time. And I was sitting on a log, and I kept going back and back and back, and I fell over backwards in that dizzying first introduction to what space looked like. I knew nothing about the mystery and the enormous forces that exist in space. But I saw the Milky Way. I didn't know it was the Milky Way until much later. I've done a little studying, like all of us, about what's in the sky and what's in the universe. I just recently joined Lawrence Krauss in a conversation. I spent an hour and a half talking to one of the finer scientists that are working in the United States, Lawrence Krauss. He is like that gentleman, Michio Kaku, is that his name? The gray-haired gentleman that is on television a lot explaining space. Well, Lawrence Krauss is the same way, explaining what's the gentleman with the 3 names? Was it Neil deGrasse Tyson? Exactly. So there are a few guys who are really knowledgeable who explain what are mysterious to us. In fact, I interviewed Neil deGrasse Tyson. And I said, come on. And then I left the room. No. I said, black, dark energy, dark matter, we've recently heard about, covers the universe. 95% of the universe is composed of something we don't know anything about. We give it a name, black, dark matter, dark energy. We don't know what it is. I said to him, so how can you tell me that your measurements are correct? And he said, well, they're correct, and we know the speed. I said, wait a minute. Then I left the building. No, so I had a mock argument with a fine scientist based on the fact that what does science really know? I mean, how do we know we know? How do we know that what we're observing is really there? And all these guys immersed in science that so many of us don't know anything about. And it's so mysterious. It's another language, it's another priesthood, it's another way of believing, I guess. I mean, somebody 100 years ago or so said, well, Big Bang, some black hole absorbed all the energy and then poof, it was the size of a dot, the universe, and then it exploded and became this universe. Wow, what a great idea. Why did it take from the beginning of mankind looking into the sky to just now for somebody to come up with the Big Bang Theory? Like, why did it take so long to come up with tectonic plates? It's so obvious, you know. You order a creme brulee at a restaurant, and you've got tectonic plates. Why did it take so long? So it's all so new, and people have these theories, and I'm every time you turn around, something new has happened in science. Oh yeah, all that stuff. I got disciplined for not knowing that an electron went around the neutron. Neutron? See, I failed that as well. No, but I mean, so all this electron well, the electron doesn't go around. I was right. It seems to go around in tiny physics, quantum physics. So everything is up in the air. I maintain that even the speed of light, which is 700,000 miles a second. What? 186,000 miles per second. 186 miles per second. So it's gone 186,000 miles. Is that it? So what does that come to? It comes to like, what is that an hour? Like I'm in a car. See, nobody knows anything. But the point is that I'm trying to make is that science and space is continuously mysterious because we don't know. I had the opportunity to interview Stephen Hawking, Sir Stephen Hawking. I had an enormous moment, and let me, like, this is like warming you up to get questions later, but it's fun. And so I was doing an interview show called I Don't Understand. And I said, I'd like to talk to Stephen Hawking about, because I had tried to get through his book, Time, the book on time, didn't understand that. And then he had another book, didn't understand that. So I thought maybe I'll, if I could talk to him. But you can't talk. You couldn't at some point talk to I don't know what they call him, Sir Stephen Hawking, Dr. Stephen Hawking, Stephen, because I got on the first name basis. It was impossible to talk to him in latter days because I don't know whether you know it or not, but he had Lou Gehrig's. He had what are the initials? ALS. He had ALS. So ALS is a disease of the body. The body is fighting itself, eating itself. And it's a slow process of disintegration. So here was one of the finest minds of the 20th century who gradually lapsed into losing his speech, losing his ability to move, and finally he ended up in a wheelchair, unable to move anything. He would come into a room and he'd be slumped over, a hand there, and he had a computer. And he communicated. He had a little patch on his cheek muscle, and he was able to move his cheek muscle, which guided the mouse on the computer, and he would spell out his answers and then move the little thing to speak, and the computer would then talk, say what it was that Dr. Hawking had said, and that was his ways of communicating with the world towards the end of his life. So I said, I'd like to interview you. And he responded by saying, great, come to Cambridge in England, and what are your questions? And you have to ask the exact same question so that I'll be able to answer it. I will prepare the answer in advance. And I would like to ask Shatner a question too. Dr. Stephen Hawking wants to ask me a question. I'm sure it's about space, which is the final frontier, or it's about the what do they call it? What do we call it? The rings, where everything's sucked into. The black holes, which is what he specialized in. It was his concept. There's a black hole out there, he said, as a concept, and then set out to prove it. And they were, well, I don't know, the black hole. And then we saw it on a telescope, and we see it on the web, and everything he said is right. So I went to Cambridge, and I had to wait a while they got his place ready for the cameras and all. So what I did was we shot some film in the Cambridge Cathedral, which either was the model for this giant one in London, or else it was a minor version of the one in London. I'm not sure. All I know is a enormous, gorgeous praise to faith, this cathedral. And so we had shot some film, and now the crews had left to go to Dr. Hawking's house, and I was alone in the cathedral. And they were cleaning the organ, this massive air organ. And I'm sitting, whatever you call the thing that goes up in the air with stained glass windows. I'm sitting there and I'm looking up, and I see a mote of dust up there. And I think, wow, because the sun caught it. And I thought, wow, that's what the Earth must look like in space, this tiny little dot. And then they called me. And I went to interview Dr. Stephen Hawking. So I'm sitting in a chair like this, and they wheel him in, and he sits in his wheelchair, slumped over, beside me. And I'm able to see his computer. And we had made cards for me to ask the exact same question. Now, I've forgotten the question, but they had to do with dark holes, black holes, and whatever it was. And he twitched the thing, and the computer would go on, and this voice would answer the question. And it was futuristic. It was so Star Trek in that it was computerized. And I was talking to a man, but I wasn't talking to him. And then we finished the questions, and then I said, Dr. Hawking, you wanted to ask me a question. What's the question? What can I provide you? What information can I give you? And he looked at me, he kind of glanced at me with his blue eyes, which were alive. His mind, the mind of these ALS, these, whatever you call the body eating itself, those diseases, your brain is alive. I'm dying. I'm dying the slow death. The brain is telling us, it's as alert as if the body were healthy. But the body's dying. And he looked at me and I thought, oh, there's something I can help him with. And he wrote out, what is your favorite episode? One of the giant minds of the 20th century wanted to know my favorite episode. I forgot what I tell him because I say something different every time somebody asks me. Dr. Stephen Hawking, so he died. One addendum to this little opening thing, and then I'll ask you to ask me questions, was the actor's name, the actor's name was Mitchell, right? The gentleman who had ALS and played in Star Trek.
Yes.
Do you remember his first name?
Is it Nathan?
An actor by the name of Mitchell played on Star Trek. Does anybody remember his name?
I think it's Nathan.
What is it?
Nathan?
Kenneth.
Oh, Kenneth.
Say it again.
Kenneth?
Dennis?
Kenneth.
Kenneth. That's it. Kenneth Mitchell. Okay. So I hear that Kenneth Mitchell, who I don't watch Star Trek, and I don't know why. Somebody's got to, in psychological terms, explain it to me. I don't watch the one I was on, and I haven't watched the others. We got a story to tell you about that. So I've forgotten how I got to know that Kenneth Mitchell also had ALS. Wonderful young actor was now approaching what was affecting Dr. Hawking. So I called him because I was doing this interview show. And I said, I'd like to interview you, but Kenneth, what I want to talk about is what's it like to look at death and see death coming. You know you're going to die and you're going to leave your family. And would you be willing to talk about the subject? And he said, I want to. And so I interviewed Kenneth Mitchell on this program, in which he spoke and wept and cried and railed against fate, because he's a young man. But he was able to speak, and he spoke his answers, and we both cried. And in fact, I've written a song. I entertained the Kennedy Center not so long ago, and we did some numbers that I'd helped write. And one of them was, I want to be a tree, which is what I want planted. When I die, I want to be interred and then have a tree planted over me. I want the sequoia, They don't grow only in a certain temperature. So I have to take a lesser tree, like a redwood tree over my. But the whole idea is instead of occupying ground, billions of us dying and occupying a 6 foot and in some cases 7 foot plot of land, things grow. You return to nature, was my thought. So I had told him that's what I wanted to do. That's what I'm going to do when I die. And he said, me too. So at the end of the interview, I sent him a tree, and he's planted it in his yard. And the last time I saw him, not so long ago, he had lost his voice, sunk further into the chair, and he's on his terrible, fateful, magical way. The thing I wanted to tell you was I forgot it. We'll hold it there because it'll come back to me. And in the middle of an answer to somebody's question, I've got it! And then I'll forget their question. All right, so that's space. There was some wonderful story I wanted to tell. Why doesn't somebody ask me a question? Line up. No, there's a microphone there. Pile on it. Slug somebody who gets in the way. No. All right. Please, ask me a question.
So, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Right into, see how close I'm holding the microphone?
Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
The Wrath of Khan.
One of the most epic Star Trek movies ever.
I thought so too.
You did an amazing scream that has become epic over the years.
The scream.
Yes.
Scream. Oh, I scream all the time.
So, 2 levels to this question. I'd love to hear you scream that.
Oh, no!
I'm also curious, what was going through your mind when you were filming that? Did you have different takes to it? Did you have different...
What's your name?
I am Nayar from the Star Pod
What is it?
Podcast. Nayar, N-A-Y-R.
N-A-Y-R. Wow. That's different. Imagine. Okay, so there. Have you ever been, why did I do that? Have you ever felt that? Have you ever felt, why did I do that? Right? Okay. I want you to have that emotion and scream Nayar. Good. I mean, as angry as you've ever been at yourself.
I'm angry at myself.
Yeah, well, be angry. Are you married?
Yes.
Now, prepare yourself there. Take a deep breath. Okay. All right. So now come down here. No, what's your wife's name?
Kavora.
You almost forgot. Sabora, come down. Come down here, Sabora. Come stand right here. Then come in and face the audience. Now, no, don't look at your phone. Her name is Nabora. I want you as angry as you've ever been.
You want me to be angry at you, little thing?
No, be angry at yourself for having been angry at her. Scream! What did she say?
I said that was awesome, baby.
That's funny. Okay, that's essentially it. Thank you, my dear. You had your moment in the sun.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure to see you. Yes, sir.
Eddie,
Right, come close to the microphone.
Eddie.
No, closer.
It's close enough?
Perfect.
Okay. Eddie, I'm Motherwood from Mississippi. First,
Wait a minute. I'm not understanding. Anybody understand that? You know,
Maybe
it's just a lady helped me by going, and I'm not going, I'm going, I don't understand the thing. Right, kiss the microphone. Don't use your tongue. Kiss the microphone, right in like that.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I do.
So my name is Eddie from Mississippi. First, thank you for coming to Huntsville and for giving us Captain Kirk.
My thanks is for all of you to come into this hall and join me in a brief conversation. Well, it's a conversation. Go ahead.
You did a series not too long ago called Better Late Than Never.
What?
Better late than never.
Better late than never, yes. Sure.
Yes, with Bradshaw and Peter Weaver.
Yes.
Yes. We love the show. Love seeing you in it. Seems like you had a really good time.
It was, except we were traveling all the time. So we were on a plane doing big, and on a plane, going to big, a hotel, terrible bed, on a plane.
Do you have a favorite moment?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
Well, everybody knows Terry Bradshaw's got 4 rings, Super Bowl rings. I mean, big, tough chunk. Was. So he's a funny guy, and I mean, 4 Super Bowl rings. I used to play football. I'm a fan of NFL and all that. So I was joyful to meet Terry, and become a friend. So we are in Sweden, in what's the capital of Sweden? We're in Stockholm. What an educated audience. So we're in Stockholm, and this show that we did, the gentleman is, what's your name?
Eddie.
Eddie?
Yes.
No, just what's your first name? Eddie, the Stockholm, Sweden, has a national dish. It's fermented fish, right? And it's canned. Now, anybody who knows anything about cans, go to the bathroom. It's a cheap joke, and I'm sorry. But few people laugh, so I'm not that sorry. So it's canned, and it's fermented. So those of us who know about canned food know that as the can expands, that's really bad. But in this case, it's deliberately fermented. So the more it expands, the better it's going to be. So we ad-libbed all this. So the producers would present a problem, and then the 4 of us, the 5 of us really, would sitting around and try to be entertaining with whatever the problem was. So in this case, it was, guys, we're going to open this can of fermented fish and we've got to eat it. Okay. So they lined us up, basically like this, and had cameras on each one of us. So the cameras have frame lines, so that this camera just was on this frame line, so everybody was individualized. Except the camera on me caught a little bit of this camera's frame line, so you saw a bit of the cameraman on this camera, and this is my camera, and that's it. You get the idea. So now we start to open the can. They didn't tell us, the producers, that you open this can underwater because it explodes. So we opened the can and it exploded, and everybody got fermented fish all over them. Now, I played a policeman for 5 years. Okay? I got really intimate with the LAPD. I'd go on rides and go on things, and I knew these tough, bold detectives who knew all about dead bodies decaying in the woods for weeks at a time. Dead flesh decaying stinks. I was told that nothing approached this fermented fish. That the dead bodies were a breeze compared to this fish. Not only that, the producers said, we want you to eat it. Okay. The way you shook your head, that's the way Terry Bradshaw. I'm not going to eat that fish. So the thing explodes, and the camera that's on me catches this cameraman here. Because that cameraman took one sniff of the explosion, turned sideways, and projectile vomited. That's how bad it was. Okay? Now I'm looking at, and I grab a piece and Shatner puts it in his mouth. Oh, it's not bad. Actually, it wasn't bad at all. It's like fermented cheese. Have you ever smelled this terrible? And then you taste it, it's really quite interesting. It's interesting. It's not doesn't good. So I put a piece of fish in my mind. I'm looking at it and it sees my and I start to get up. One of the great put on massive amount of muscle, and he's a beast, and I'm running after him with a piece of fermented fish, and he turns abruptly to the left, comes out of his shoes, and falls to the ground. Thank you. Well, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Forgive me.
One, I'm gender blue. Did Leonard Nimoy?
Wait a minute. A little slower because the echo and all that.
Okay. Did Leonard Nimoy know that Spock was a autistic icon?
Spock was an autistic icon?
Yeah. The character of Spock.
No kidding. No, he didn't. He and I certainly didn't know. Maybe he knew, but we never talked about it. What's the nature of it? Are you on the? You're handling yourself beautifully.
Thanks.
What's
To outwardly show his emotion, but for him, it's like really hard for him to show them outwardly. Yeah.
No, we never talked about it. I loved Leonard Nimoy. I wrote a book, strangely called Leonard, and I spoke about how deep our friendship was. We were like brothers. He was the brother I never had, and strangely, Leonard's life and my life were parallel. We were born 4 days apart. He was born in Boston, I in Montreal. Cities very similar. Same kind of family, same kind of upbringing, same kind of trajectory in our careers. Worked hard, didn't happen suddenly, and then all through the years that we knew each other and appeared in Comic Cons and different places that we would be together. We spoke about our lives, our divorces, our deaths, our children, our troubles, our victories. We were deep friends, and then he died. And you know, he died, and I speak about this in the book, or I write about this in the book. He died, and the last several months, he refused to talk to me, and I don't know why. I'd like to think it was because he was ill and he didn't want me anywhere near him. And that. But when he died, when he passed away, he passed away like on a Friday or a Saturday. He was being buried the next day on a Sunday morning. And I had contracted to be at, if you will, Mar-a-Lago, to raise money for the Red Cross. And I was one of the people that the audience had come to see, and they had many tables, and I think it was like $10 million for the Red Cross. It was a big event at a big place. And I chose to go to the money, to raise the money, as against going to the funeral. And what I said to the audience there was, everybody talks about legacy, you know, statues, they're torn down, buildings, they erode, reputations, hardly anybody remembers the great entertainers of 10 years ago, let alone 20 or 25. Everything turns to dust. What doesn't turn to dust, and this is what I said to these people who gave a great deal of money, are good deeds. Good deeds go on, reverberate. You help an old person across the street, you give money to somebody who needs it, you provide sustenance and protection to children. All those things go on. They go on like the waves in a pond where you've dropped a stone. They just continue to reverberate because one thing helps another. So good deeds, I said to them, is your legacy, not fame, fortune, or castles. That was Leonard Nimoy.
Thank you.
This is the last question for Mr. Shatner. It goes on now. There we go. Last question for Mr. Shatner, and let you know he will be back immediately after this at his booth taking pictures, signing autographs. So he'll be doing that. But just the one last question.
Hi, I'm David.
Right close to the microphone.
Hey, I'm David Patrick. I kind of noticed that, like.
No. You're not close enough to the microphone, and you need to speak in a louder voice.
Hi, I'm David Patrick.
Perfect.
I noticed that Jonathan Frakes went on to Beyond Belief, and Leonard Nimoy did Search Of, and you did Weird or What, and are currently doing Unexplained. Is there any reason that like Star Trek actors went on to do these mystery shows, or is that just a coincidence? And are there any interesting stories behind that?
Okay. What do you say? You have no idea. How many?
Is there a correlation to the mystery show that you guys all did after Star Trek?
Was there a correlation to the mystery shows?
Yeah.
Well, yes. For me, I can speak for myself. I was up in space, and I saw the little tiny dust, mote of dust I saw in the cathedral. I saw it from whatever, 50, 60, 70 miles up there. I saw the curvature of the earth. I could continue the circle. I'm a pilot, so I know that above 12,500 feet you need oxygen. So although the very thin skin of air around the planet is 50 miles, 2 miles of it is useful for human beings. We're in a tiny with her sword in front of her, off to battle. I wish you hadn't said it was the last question. That was the worst thing you could have said. No, we'll ask more questions. I'm going to stay here until
Thank you, Mr. Shatner. Is this?
No, I haven't finished answering your question. You weren't listening to my answer. Naughty boy. I saw the earth the way astronauts have talked about. I saw the blue dot. I saw the vulnerability. I saw the majesty of where we live, the awesomeness of where we live, because it's possible, I don't think probable, but it's possible that it's unique and life is, we're alone in the universe. But I saw how small, how tiny the earth is, how vulnerable the earth is. And although I was filled with the awe and wonder of this tiny rock hanging in space, I also, when I came down, was aware that I was in grief, and I didn't realize why. I was crying because there are so many species going extinct as we talk. Things existed. I drove from Los Angeles to San Francisco and back in a few hours, 24 hours. I had to do something up there and I drove back. 20 years ago, you had to stop every 100 miles to scrape the insects off the windshield. One insect in 700 miles, in the most fertile valley possibly in the world, the San Joaquin Valley. Things are going extinct. What is sadder is things are going extinct that we never knew existed. Life is sacred. It took 3.8 billion years to evolve into the life forms we have now. It's magical. Everything is magical that exists. It took all that time to evolve to live. Trees living on the edge of cliffs, thousands of years old, clinging to the cliff. I'm going to live. Slime has its own mind. Slime can find its way out of a maze and look for the sun. I mean, everything that's alive strives to live. Us, we want to live. And things are dying and we didn't know they even existed. That magic that life brought about, we don't know, and they're gone forever. And we didn't even know we can't say, well, there were lions. You should have seen the lions, honey. They were so big and now they're gone. We have a couple in the zoo, but we don't know they existed. All that magic. I went, and that's what I felt when I came down from space. We need to be aware of what we're doing. We need to save our planet. We all need to be aware that the planet and humanity needs help. Thank you very much.